Welcome to the Non-Human and AI Identity podcast. By humans, for humans, no AI-generated content. Hi, I'm Lalit Choda, founder of the Non-Human Identity Management Group. On this brand new podcast show, I'll be hosting the leading voices shaping the future of non-human and agentic AI identity. We will also be sharing thought leadership insights from the latest events, including webinars, conferences, summits, and workshops focused on identity management and security. We hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of the Non-Human and AI Identity podcast. I'm excited to have Itzik Alvas CEO and co-founder of NHI Security join me for this first episode. Itzik, why don't you say hi, give a brief intro, and share something interesting folks may not know about you.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me at your first episode. It's gonna be a great show for sure. So I'm Itzik Alvas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NHI Security. NHI is a non-human identity and AI agent security company with and maybe something that you don't know about the company, and then something you don't know about myself. So about the company, NHI Security was the first company that started the NHI vertical, and we're super proud about that, about creating a much needed market. And maybe about me, something you don't know. So prior to NHI, I was responsible for the internal security of one of Microsoft's clouds. Prior to that, I was a CISO. And during those times, I got breached 3 times by non-human identities, which kind of led me to think a lot about the problem and eventually start NHI that started that vertical. Again, pleasure to be here, and thank you, Lalit, for doing that show and having me.
All right, thanks, Itzik. So look, in this first episode, I'd like to talk a little bit about the NHI journey over the last few years, and then more recently, as we move into the era of AI. Now, I'll start from when kind of I interacted with Itzik just over a couple of years ago. I published my first white paper on NHIs, published it on LinkedIn. In those days, I used to call it technical accounts, not NHIs, but I switched over to the new kind of standard language to define these entities. It got a lot of attention across the industry, quite a few organizations that were developing NHI-focused solutions kind of started talking, reaching out, to get some insights, given I was a hands-on practitioner running a large NHI program at a huge investment bank. And that's how I got chatting with Itzik and his team. You guys, you loved the vision. Our vision at the group, at the NHI management group, was to sort of really focus on education, evangelizing about non-human identities. And NHI were one of the first to support our community-based organization. Again, then about a year ago, Itzik reaches out with his team and says, look, we want to launch the first ever global NHI conference. It's going to be in New York at the amazing NASDAQ building in Times Square in February 25. I mean, the event was a massive success, huge demand and interest across the industry. We were oversubscribed for that event. And I think a year ago, a lot of organizations really wanted to learn about the NHI challenge, the risks. And at that time, we only had one session talking about AI. Now, fast forward to last November, right? We hosted the second summit in London at the Gherkin Tower, and it was called the NHAI Summit. And given that we've seen so much change in the last year around agentic AI agents, the birth of MCP, it's been really a fascinating 2 years watching, how things have matured around NHIs and now, with agentic AI. So starting there, Itzik, what's your view around where we are as an industry and how are organizations addressing the NHI challenge? Do you think we have the right sort of NHI capabilities now, or are orgs, still trying to learn, doing awareness, or are they actually addressing risks?
I think all of the above, right? We never stop learning, we never stop advancing, but definitely the market matured a lot. So when we started, Back in 2022, and again, first company in the space, we've done a lot of education. So that problem, the non-human identity problem, has been around for a long time. Non-human identities are being utilized by applications in order to connect or authenticate to resources those application needs. So if an application needs to connect to a database, or maybe that application needs to use a storage account, or maybe that application needs to connect to another application, all of that connectivities are being authenticated by non-human identity. So from the moment application needed something outside of its own, resources, it used non-human identity. So that problem has been around for ages.
Yeah.
So now those non-human identities have excessive privileges, usually being created by developers or DevOps who are permissioning them, using them, and scattering them around. And we had different approaches to solve that problem before, like, vaults are one place to kind of store them all, but then the problem is I don't know how many I have and where they are, so how can I go ahead and store them in a secure location? And then because of that, secret scanner came out. So secrets are credentials of non-human identities. So different companies started to scan for them, mainly around code. And that was like another old approach that we've done before. It's still very relevant, but doesn't solve the main problem, because we still don't know how many NHIs we have, and we don't know anything about the secrets we're finding. So there was people out there trying to solve the problem for a long time. It is an ancient problem. And I think currently, and what Entro is doing is the right way to solve it. And we are seeing more and more companies adopting our approach, either pivoting to what we're doing or just spinning up new companies around the solution that we've invented. So I do think the NHI market is in a way better place right now because there is a solution out there. There is something that can go ahead and solve the problem, solve it from the security side and not from the engineering side, because that's how people kind of approached that back then, solve it from the engineering side. So there are solutions out there based on what we've created, and it's great solutions. And then you're right, AI really shifted everything because now you have AI agents, and those AI agent needs also to connect to resources, right? Those AI agents,
Mm.
maybe you have an AI agent that is, I know, managing your calendar. You're a busy guy, and the AI agent is managing your calendar. So in order to connect to the calendar, is using APIs, and in order to authenticate to those APIs, is using non-human identities again. So now you have a batch of AI agent also leveraging non-human identities as their identities or credentials, in order to gain access to basically customer data, right? In order to get access to the organizational data. So that definitely shifted a lot of different stuff around the industry altogether, but also in the non-human identity side, because AI agents rely heavily on identities, even if it's a human delegation that you're giving to the AI. That human delegation is actually resulting in a non-human identity behind the scenes. So AI agents relying on non-human identities, which are relying on secrets in order to authenticate. So you can kind of think about AI agent as non-human identity on steroids, if you will, or if you better, think about them as a new kind of identity that is relying on non-human identities in order to gain access. That's fine too. But definitely that's something that non-human identities, security companies like Entro is taken into account, and now we can also protect and automate the lifecycle of those AI agents as well, because they are now a part of that game. So yeah,
Great.
I agree, and it's also very, fastly adopted. When we introduced our first AI agent solution, early 2025, I think from our customer base, we saw that every 30-ish employee is adopting AI agent. Now we're seeing that every seventh employee is adopting AI agent.
Wow.
And that's a a very rapid change in adoption for sure. And the adoption also is across the board. It's not only, developers that are using AI agent in order to write code. It's also
Mm.
finance and HR like the adoption is across the board.
All right, so why don't we um, talk a little bit about kind of where organizations are around the maturity curve. Do you think, before we get into kind of the agentic topic in more detail, but where are
Mhm.
organizations in their maturity curve with non-human identities and addressing those risks? Do you think people are still trying to understand the problem, or don't want to deal with the problem because it's hard and tough? Or are you actually seeing, real change in the last kind of maybe 12, 18 months? And, this is really becoming a top priority now for CISOs and other security practitioners to solve within organizations.
Right. I think it always was a top priority. I don't think the priority changed. I think it always was a top priority. I know when I was a CISO, it was my top priority. When I was responsible for the internal security of Microsoft Defender, that was my top priority. Usually people are kind of relying on external resources, so I'm not sure how, because different organizations are kind of, prioritizing different stuff differently. I used to use IBM cost of data breach. That's probably the most respected cybersecurity report in the industry.
Mm,
And then you have Verizon report and also Gartner reports, and all of them for years now are saying that non-human identities are the second most frequent attack vector out there. And also it's the number one most costly attack to an organization. So the way I used to prioritize stuff is when I went to the board and wanted more budget because, you know, I wanted to buy more tools and be more secure. So when I used to do that, I used to take those lists and see, okay, let's say the first most frequent attack vector is phishing. Do I have anything for that? I do.
mm,
Great. The second one is NHI. Do I have anything for that? No, I don't. Okay, that's my next project, and so on. That's how I used to prioritize my stuff, and I see that a lot of other organizations are kind of doing the same, kind of prioritizing in the same manner because it makes sense, to prioritize like that. So I think the priority was always there. I think the solutions were not the right solution to solve that problem. So people tried and failed, an organization tried and failed, and it created a lot of mess. And nowadays, where the solutions are mature enough and also taking the right approach. So yes, I do see that to answer your question, a lot of organizations are not afraid to take on that problem because the solutions are quite helpful now
mm.
and they are resolving that problem, actively resolving the problem. And then their peer organizations are looking at that and saying, okay, so if those guys are solving it and we haven't, it means that we're probably a prime target now, or a better at least target to attackers. So we need to solve it. And it's like a flywheel, if you will. And yes, I see an amazing change in the last 2 years and definitely the last 12 months. People are adopting, people are buying, people are having projects around it and are remediating that vast of an issue because also for ages we've invested so much in the human identity side and those human identities have less permissions
Mhm.
and less blast radius and so forth. But we have so many tools for them, right? Like we have the zero trust and we have MFAs and we have CASBs and a lot of other stuff. For non-human identities, like that's where we need to invest because they have wider blast radius and way more complex. And that's where organizations are investing now.
Okay, thanks for that insight, Itzik. Look, my view, kind of being very deep in the NHI space, like yourself, for a few years now, I think the second half of 25, it seemed like everybody was just talking about AI, agentic, and AI agents, which obviously, as you've said, they're all sort of a subset of non-human identities, but clearly have a lot more complexities. Do you think now kind of the agentic AI agent story is now overshadowing the broader NHI story, and maybe that's getting a little bit forgotten now, and everybody just wants to focus on, how do we govern, manage, and secure AI agents? And is there a risk that NHI security and management may take a backseat, as we focus more on, AI agents and agentic AI?
So I think truthfully, no. I think that at the end of the day, in order for any AI agent to gain any sort of data access, they will need to use non-human identities.
Yeah.
So there's no real technical way to secure those AI agents without securing their identities or their access rights.
Mm,
Um, so I don't see any technical way to actually protect AI agents without force protecting non-human identities, or maybe doing combination, but you will need to protect both of them. Like you're unable to protect the human identity without understanding its permissions or access and how it's being utilized. Same goes for AI agents. So there are a lot of vendors out there that understand that they understand that in order to protect AI agent, they need to protect non-human identities, but it is such an heavy development cycle for them. They are new companies that are trying to protect AI agent, and they understand they need to protect non-human identities, but they don't want to do that because that takes a long time. So what
yeah.
they are doing, they are creating like a gateway, MCP gateway, like a man in the middle proxy kind of solution, and they are telling the customer, okay, find your own AI agent, go through that proxy. We're gonna see everything, and then we can control or protect them. So that's like vendors are doing that. That's a solution out there.
Mm,
But still, that's like going back to the 70s. You're introducing a proxy. You're saying everybody needs to go through that proxy. Of course, you're unable to fully understand if everything is going through that proxy because you have zero visibility. And that's not the correct way. That's not the seamless way. That's not the easy button. Um, but those vendors have, their own concern because they doing that saves them a lot of development time. But uh, but
yeah.
but people will first realize it's not gonna cut it and it's not gonna work for them. So the only way to secure AI agent is to be able to connect the dots, is to be able to discover the AI agent and then discover its identities. And then if that AI agent is leveraging those identities in order to take action, then okay, let's track everything that he's doing according to his
Yeah.
identities. Let's understand the permissions and maybe right size those permissions. And how do you know if that AI is idle or not in use anymore? You can just track his identities, right? In proxy solution, you will have no idea. So that's the correct way to do that. So I actually think that it's not overshadowing it. It's helping the NHI because it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. And also, again, following those reports, while AI agent is something that is coming and fastly coming, and people need to take that and secure the current adoption and future adoption that is rapidly coming. NHIs are now a part of every company
Yeah.
landscape. So yeah, I think actually it's an amazing turnaround for the NHI, and it's only increasing our value in the market.
Yeah, look, I definitely agree with you. Look, my view was I think definitely there's been some organizations that have been leading the charge in addressing NHI risks. Obviously a huge amount of awareness from many groups across, all parts of the industry, making kind of NHIs the number one topic, I guess, going into 25. I do think the AI story has kind of overtaken NHIs, but that's a good thing, right? Because now
Right.
every board member, every CISO, right, they're all asking about AI agents, agentic. It is an arms race, right? To be competitive, to now survive in the industry, if you're not using agents and kind of building that digital workforce, right, you're going to get left behind. So I do agree, Itzik, that this is great for the whole NHI story and
Yeah,
will
for
hopefully,
sure.
really accelerate, both. supporting agents and all the challenges that's going to bring, which is another session in itself, right? And I think we'll create more focus on addressing kind of the fundamental issues around non-human identities, which are massive across the organizations, globally. Now, look, you speak to a lot of customers, CISOs, and other security practitioners. What are they telling you about kind of NHIs and AI, agentic AI? Can you share some insights to the audience, please?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely the people I'm speaking with realizing, and that's why we probably have a connection too. Is they are realizing the main problem around those non-human identities. They understand they have. So I'll share another statistic with you again from our customer base. For every human identity in an organization, you would have on average 144 non-human identities. So that's an insane number. Like how can you go
And
ahead and protect? Yeah, how can you go ahead and protect 144x?
and with AI
Uh,
and agentic,
and
right,
with
that would
AI,
probably
it's
be
only, yeah.
500x or 1000x probably, right?
Right, right. So I think they get it. They have currently at least 144x identities that are not being controlled. The main problem is that they are being created and permissioned and used outside of security visibility and control, and therefore, they are everywhere. So those CISOs understand that, and they want to get the inventory to understand how many they have, where they are, get some context, understand who's using them, right? Is AI using most of my non-human identities, or maybe standard applications are using that? Who's from the outside is using my non-human identity? Let's say that someone from North Korea is using my service account to access my environment. Like
Mm.
they need to understand that. They need to understand something like that is happening, probably also prevent it, but at least see it. So they definitely understand the problem. They definitely understand the need. They definitely understand they need a vendor to solve that because it's such a huge problem. So yes, I agree that 2 years ago it was mostly around education. They understood the problem, but they needed to better understand why our solution work. And I agree that now we're seeing way more projects, like people are over that education stage. Of course, they're still learning. Everybody is still learning, but the market is shifting towards implementation and even remediation. And I agree that also AI is something that everybody's talking about. Every board member is thinking to himself and is like, okay, if we can get 100% or maybe 80% adoption of AI in my organization, we can maybe do 2, 3x the work
Mm.
with the same, same people, same employees, same time. So why aren't we trying? Why aren't we doing that? And then the CISOs are kind of in dilemma because they want to allow that. They need to allow it, right? They need to allow that growth. It's good
Yeah.
for everybody, but they also need to secure that, and they need to understand what policies and what should be done and what shouldn't be done, and they need some eyes over that. And that's exactly where us at Entro comes in. So that's basically what I'm hearing from CISOs. They are implementing and remediating around NHI, and they are now expanding that in order to do the same for AI agent or basically every kind of identity.
But from what you're hearing and seeing, do you think, whilst yes, CISOs are concerned about the security angle, are organizations just rushing AI agentic kind of deployments, you know, from a time to market standpoint and sort of forgetting about the foundational, IAM security principles? What are you seeing from that standpoint?
I think it's different per organization. I think that most organizations, you're right. Security is kind of in a reactive mode. Security, you have the business is driving stuff, the business is asking developers to develop stuff, the business is adopting, stuff off the shelf, and so forth. And then security comes in and saying, okay, guys, you want to use it gives you value, that's fine, but it opens, many back doors. So let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can enable you to use it the way you want to use it, but also be secure. I think that most organizations are doing that, not everyone. Some of them have, some security measurement in the adoption stage, not everybody. But I think the resolution or the end game is the same. Like we want to enable the business to move as fast as they want and to use whatever they want to use. And our job at security is to make sure they're able to do that in a secure way. They are able to do
Yeah,
that without getting breached, right? They are able to do that without completely destroying our organization. So that's our job. That's what we need to do. And that's exactly the solution. Those out of band, agentless solutions is exactly what the CISOs are after, to enable the business to do what the business is doing best. And
yeah,
and I don't think, business folks should they should definitely have security in their mind, but it's not what they are being measured on, right? So even if you take developers, developers are being measured on delivering more code
yeah.
or delivering more value or delivering more functionality. Um, what they are being measured on. They are not being measured on how secure their code is. They are measured on how good their code is and if you can actually deliver the value they wanted to deliver. Security are being measured on security, and therefore those kinds of interactions are going on where the business is developing or adopting something, and then security needs to understand how to secure it. And those are the approaches that works well for companies like ours because that's exactly what we can help with for our customers.
Okay, great for those insights. And I guess that's a good segue. Why don't you just tell us maybe a little bit about kind of Entra Security, what you're building, what your vision is from both an NHI and a agentic AI standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. Would love to do that. So as mentioned, Entro started in the non-human identity and secrets. Non-human identities or secrets are the credentials of non-human identities. As said before, non-human identities are being utilized by applications to connect or authenticate against other applications or resources. And that's where Entro started. Like the main problem we've seen is that those non-human identities and secrets are being created outside of security, being created by multiple groups in the organization who are permissioning them, using them, and scattering them everywhere. They've been sending them over Slack, committing them to code. And at the end of the day, those weren't really managed well and weren't secured well, and therefore it's the second most frequent attack vector. So we came out with a new approach on how to secure them, and basically it's to move all of them to security or to move the control over them to security, keep the engineering or the other folks do whatever they do best. They can create them, they can do whatever they want with them, but security can have control over them too.
Yeah,
So we have like 6 different pillars. The first one is basically discovery and inventory. The main problem that organizations want to solve is to understand how many non-human identities they have and where they are. And that's the fourth thing we've solved for them. And then if you ever seen a non-human identity, usually it's a long randomized string. So even if we find it, like security practitioners don't really know a lot about them because again, it's a long randomized string. So now we're classifying them, adding business context to them, and basically creating a lineage map of which application is using what non-human identity, um, to access what resource and why, and who's the human owner, and what's the permissions and the activities and how it's being utilized, and basically like a full lineage map with all of the vital data you need to know in order to secure them or to understand their blast radius. And once you have those two, once you have the inventory and the classification, now you can start doing security stuff or lifecycle management stuff. Now you can start saying, okay, that one wasn't rotated for a long time, or that one have admin permission, but it's only doing read operations. So let's right
yeah,
size those permissions. Now you can start doing posture management stuff. And then we're doing abnormal behaviors, like mentioned earlier. Maybe someone from North Korea is using your non-human identities, right? Maybe one of your non-human identities are being utilized in order to miss download data for the first time. Like that's something you should be aware of. So we're doing abnormal behaviors, and then we have our remediation workflows. Again, the scale of them is insane. So you will need some campaigns in order to do remediation or some automated workflows. And the end of it, we're offboarding them once they are no longer needed. When we're entering an environment, we're seeing that about 40% out of all non-human identities are enabled. Someone can use them, but no one is. They are idle, they are stale. And therefore, you need a proper way in order to finish their life cycle and offboarding them and disabling them once they are no longer needed. So that's where we started. It was a completely new approach to the market. We saw an amazing traction. Again, it created a new vertical. And now we're doing the same for AI agents. So we are relying heavily on our non-human identity solution, but it is a different solution. Now we're
Mm,
doing the same for AI agents because the problems are kind of the same, right? Security don't know how many AI agents are out there because everybody can now create one or subscribe to one or download one and connecting it to other the company resources and services.
yeah.
So they don't know how many they have, they don't know where they are, they lack context over them, they lack security over them, they lack offboarding practices over them. And so the problems are kind of aligning. And again, because non-human identities because AI agents are relying on non-human identities, we can use all of our technology in order to also find all of the AI agents out there, whether they are in cloud, SaaS, or on your local machine. Maybe you're a developer that is using Gemini code or Cursor in order to write code. We're going to find the two and we're going to provide the same inventory. And then we're going to do context. We're going to create, again, lineage map of which AI
Yeah.
agent is accessing what and so forth. And then we're going to do security remediation stuff and abnormal behaviors and so forth. So we're applying the same principles, the same different six pillars that I explained earlier for AI agent as well. And then we're connecting all of the dots. So once we found all of your AI agents and we're connecting it to all of your non-human identities, and basically we're connecting all of the dots over there. We're also adding a lot of support around other identities too. So the ownership side, the human owner, how many non-human identities they can access, how many AI agents that human
Yeah.
owner have, and so forth. So yeah, it's really comprehensive platform to secure all of your identities and definitely non-human identities and AI agents.
Okay, well, that's really fascinating to hear, and I think really aligns well to what we were discussing. That really
Right.
kind of the agentic AI story kind of is aligned to NHIs. Yes, there's a lot more complexity around that dealing with AI agents, but it's great to see that the core life cycle processes are common. But we're going to just shift gears a little bit now. Look, this is the last few months have just been an eye opener, in particular, even for me, and I'm sure everyone else in the industry. Look, obviously everyone's saying now, identity is the new control plane, the security plane, and there's been some amazing, massive acquisitions, right, and investments in the last
Yeah.
few months. Palo Alto, CyberArk, ServiceNow, Visa, I guess last week, CrowdStrike, Signal, and Delinea Strong DM yesterday.
Right.
At a 700 million investment in Savient and many, many more. Um, what's your view on what's going on in the market at the moment?
Yeah, no, I think what's going on is what should be happening. I think all of the big players and all of the market movers, like CrowdStrike, like Palo Alto, and so forth, are realizing. Also, let's not forget, I know it was, last year, but IBM with HashiCorp and so forth.
Mm,
Like, I think all of the market movers understands that networking used to be a thing, blocking people from or blocking connections from the outside in. It's not anymore. You're completely right by saying that identity is the new frontier. AI agents are relying on their identities in order um, to access organizations' data and resources. Applications are relying on their non-human identities in order to get access to data and resources, and of course, human are relying on our identities in order to gain data. So I think people are understanding that, and we're seeing the market reacting to it. So everybody, Palo Alto, ServiceNow, and anybody out there is gearing up because they understand the need and the importance and where the market is going, and they are seeing all of the projects out there that companies are doing around those identities, and they just don't want to be left out. It is the current, present, and it is the future too. So that's why we're seeing such a big acquisitions and investments.
Yeah, I'm sort of one, I'm sure many who's going to be fascinated to see how, 2026 develops. I thought 25 was crazy enough. And I guess when I wrote my ultimate guide to non-human identities, like last January, there was over hundreds of millions invested in NHI companies, and now the numbers are just staggering, and it's just amazing how everything's just moving so fast. All right, let's go back to the topic of the day, agentic AI. What concerns you most about the agentic AI challenge and what this means from an identity security standpoint?
Right. I think what concerns me and what I'm hearing in the industry as well is the adoption. The adoption rate is unique. The adoption rate is also being derived because the organization kind of demanded. You have managers, they are fully demanding their employees to start using AI agents. So we're seeing we're seeing the adoption, and the security out there is not yet implemented well. It's still kind of bubbling. Where exactly it will land, we're gonna see, because there's enough tools out there that are still being adopted and they're still being tested and so forth. But I think what the main problem in the market currently is the adoption is very, very fast. And as we spoke earlier, that people are usually adopting and then adding security guardrails over.
Mm,
That adoption rate is super fast, and we've seen it. Like there were already attacks around AI agents, like the Singularity attack, that was a completely crazy one.
mm.
Who leveraged AI agents in order to do that,
Yeah,
and attacked AI agents too. So AI agents are attacking AI agents like insane. Entro was able to see that in real time. Entro was able to prevent it in real time. But of course, it's still an evolving market, and I think because the organization is moving so fast, and because those AI agents are being again created by, or can be created by, any employee in the company, and they are creating them and they are adopting them, I think security teams needs to move a bit faster over here too, to catch up, because the organization is moving so fast.
great. Look, when I think about what concerns me the most is I think, yes, the pace at which kind of agentic AI agents are moving is phenomenal. Even I've played with some of them myself. Um, but I think kind of the whole, agentic AI space is where NHIs were probably 3, 4 years ago, when tooling was just coming out or maturing. I think clearly the agentic AI problem is much more complex, agent to agent kind of interaction, obviously the autonomous nature of the agents. You need to effectively, you know, authorize, for every interaction, that may occur. Some of that may not be predefined, identity spinning up on the fly. There's so much complexity right around agentic AI, and I don't think we have, the solutions yet to properly manage the full life cycle. So I think, the obvious stuff, understand how many have, inventory, ownership, who has access. But I think we've got a long way to go. I think our standards, our models for how we can, do policy driven, rules, and many other things. I think that there's a long way to go. I think so. Yes, I think organizations need to be really careful and realize that there's huge amounts of exposures, that agents create far more than the sort of standard NHI based workloads. I was fortunate enough to be at the launch of the OWASP Top 10 agentic applications launch, and Obviously many of the top 10 were identity related, but just the security challenges around AI agents is kind of massive. All right.
Yeah.
Anything to add on that?
No, I agree, and I agree that we're seeing it in reports and analysts too. Like the main challenges are around the identities, and I agree. We will need. I think there are great solutions out there. I think Entro is doing amazingly in securing, finding, discovering, and securing those AI agents. But I agree that as we're gonna see more functionality from the AI agents or AI companies, we're gonna need to, as vendor in the space, we're gonna need to move fast in order to secure that, and the organization will need to move fast in order to adopt that, because the business teams are adopting it. So yeah, again, I think it's the pace. I think it's the ability to react fast enough because the market is moving so fast. And I think that's gonna ultimately be the biggest issue or pain point in the market or
Okay,
security
okay.
market.
I think we're slowly coming to the end of this fascinating discussion. Shame it's going to be only 50 minutes or an hour. I'm sure we could speak for hours and hours on this topic.
Right, for sure.
So what advice would you give to the audience and organizations as they think about NHIs and their journey or, dealing with AI agents? What would be the top two, three things you would advise them on?
Yeah. So first of all, budget for it, but whether it's money or time or like realize that you will need to do something and find the allowance to do that, find the time, find the team, plan for it, plan the time and resources. That's of course number one because you will need to address that. You will. In any industry in the market, you will need to address that. So that's of course number one. Number two, get educated. There are a lot of vendors out there. They marketing sometimes making a mess, if you will. They are saying stuff that can make some confusion in the market. So find the time to get educated. Talk with us, talk with Central Security or companies like us that are doing the AI agent security from the landscape of non-human identities, from the landscape of what they can access and what identities they can use. And then talk with other folks too that are taking the proxy, the man in the middle kind of approach. Get educated about the solutions out there and the problem. And then finally, understand what matters more to you within your organization. So while I'm sure every organization out there will need to find a solution, and to find time to learn about the solution and to implement the solution, not all of the use cases are the same for every company out there. And I think that's where analysts like you come into to play, because you're seeing a lot of different companies, and you're seeing a lot of different vendors, and you know kind of where the market is and what suits who. So that's finally gonna be the last thing that you will need to understand is, okay, what matter most for us? Where is the biggest gap? What the KPIs? Where let's say we're now buying a solution. Let's say you're going with Entro and buying Entro, where we want to be in 1 year. And once you have that answer, kick it off. Start that project, see if you can meet your goals. Um, yeah, plan for it, because it's not coming. It's already here.
Great. All right. And as we close, I think we've got an exciting event coming up on February the 26th back in the amazing NASDAQ building, Times Square, where we've got our third NHAI Global Summit that we're co-hosting. Why don't you tell the audience what's in store for that amazing event?
Yeah, I think a part of understanding the problem, understanding more around the problem, understanding the solutions, that are available out there, whether it's in the NHI space, the non-human identity space, or AI agent space, or a combination of both of them. I think that's probably the best conference to go to. So the NHAI Summit, we've done that as you mentioned, Lalit. Last year, twice, once in New York and another time in London. Um, Other than a beautiful, amazing venue, definitely Nasdaq in Times Square. It's an amazing venue to just even see in person. But other than that, there is going to be a lot of vendors out there. It's not like an intro conference where intro is controlling everything. It's not. Yes, we're the host of it. Lalit is or the non-human identity management group is also hosting that. But there will be a lot of other vendors around AI agents, a lot of other vendors around non-human identities, and a lot of other vendors that are doing both. So there's going to be a great opportunity to learn more about the problem, to learn more about the space, and to learn more about which vendor is doing what. So definitely, that's going to be a very good session for everybody in the security space.
Right, I think you missed the best bit that there's a chance to meet Mr. NHI at the
Right? Yeah,
conference as well. And if
correct.
anyone doesn't know who Mr. NHI is, it's me. All right, thanks Itzik for joining Mr. NHI on his maiden first Non-Human and AI Identity podcast show. It's the first time I'm doing anything like this in my career. I'm not a natural in front of the camera. So I hope as the shows go on, this turns out to be a show that, more and more people will tune into. We've got phenomenal lineup of guest speakers. The first sort of 2, 3 months is already full in terms of who we've got lined up. So do subscribe to our show. You'll find all of this content on Spotify, Apple, as well as YouTube. And finally, given our mission is to educate, evangelize, and then share the best knowledge around NHIs, visit nhimg.org. We have over 1,500 articles, research blogs, educational videos, a forum, lots of webinars, conferences. So got huge amounts of information. So as Itzik said, really educate yourself. This market's moving really fast. It's so hard to keep up with what's going on with NHIs and agentic AI. I hope this podcast helps kind of, bring the best information and insights together. And thank you, Itzik, for being the first to come on our show.
Yeah, thanks Lalit for having me, and yeah, definitely go to the non-human identity management group to learn more about the entire space. And if you would like to double click on what we're doing at Entro Security, then entro.security, visit us. And again, thank you, Lalit, for doing that.
All right, and looking forward to seeing you next month in New York, Times Square, in the amazing
For sure.
NASDAQ building.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.